Thank you for joining me. Today we will go through the Area 1 Task A, which is where each instrument checkride starts. And to bring this to a full screen, here is my instrument ICS. Area of Operation 1, Task A, Pilot Qualifications. There, from all the mock checkrides that I've seen, there's never a different starting questions from what do you need to be instrument current, what do you need to get instrument rating, what do you need to fly in certain conditions. So that is all in the knowledge areas and the skill areas of the ICS. And today, hopefully in a quick lesson, we'll cover that. So let's roll. Well, first of all, for those of you who are not flying with me, take this as a reference for your information and talk to your CFI about official instructing. Today, the plan of this lesson objective is to develop students' knowledge, risk management, and practical skills required when he's flying as PAC under instrument flight rules or under IMC conditions, and we'll talk about how those two are different. Also, how to get certified, how to stay current, privileges, limitations. And the purpose is, that's important. We all need to make sure we are staying current, that we're staying legal, and especially some of us will be spreading the knowledge as CFIs. Well, you definitely need to know that. So we'll go over certification requirements. Number one, instrument rating requirements specifically, then documents and currency requirements. I don't know why I have that in double. We'll see in a few slides. Then another important question is, how do we log the time? There are some nuances in what you can and what you cannot log, and very typically you'll get a question, well, great, now you're flying in on IFR plan and weather is so-and-so, what can you log? So one of the questions. A safety pilot, basic med, and we'll do a quick proficiency, currency, and the fitness for flight. That's all I think should be able to do in the next 30 minutes. Let's go. So, instrument rating airplane, or TLA is IRA. What is needed? All those are detailed in 6165. And to apply for an instrument rating as a pilot, you need to hold or concurrently apply. So you can actually appear in front of DP applying for both private pilot and instrument rating, but you have to have that private pilot at the end of the checkride. Also need to read, speak, write, and understand English. You have to complete ground school, and guess what? Doing this with me actually counts. If you go through all the lessons and I sign your logbook, that's a ground school. Before you go for the written and practical, endorsements are required for both. And overall, in your preparation, you have to cover specific knowledge, specific training, and obtain specific experience. That's covered in 6165 Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. The experience is something else that you will be asked for. What do you need to have? And when you show up at checkride, DP will probably ask you, well, show me where you have all that's required, which means you need not only to have that, but also remember what are you showing. You need to have PIC cross-country time. And very often when we have a fresh private pilot, he will not have 50 hours of PIC cross-country time. And by the way, there are a couple definitions of cross-country for this rating. You have to have a 50 nautical miles minimum straight line distance between airports. So if you've flown in zigzag and weird patterns, but airports are less than 50 miles apart, doesn't count. Next, 40 hours actual or simulated instrument time. So out of those, only 15 have to be with CFII. The rest you can log by flying with a safety pilot. And if a person is fully proficient and ready for the check ride, and say we only logged 20 hours with myself as the double I, he can grab a friend and a cheap airplane and just go under the hood building that simulated instrument time. And while being under the hood, if the person flies cross country, that also logs him the cross country time. So this often happens at the end of the instrument preparation for those who didn't build enough cross country or IMC time or simulated IMC time. 3 hours within 2 months before the check ride, FAA really wants you to come fresh. Make sure you haven't forgotten what you learned. And for the instrument, you have to have that one long cross country, which should be total of 250 nautical miles along airways or as routed by ATC with 3 different approaches. And on this one, depends on how you interpret the 6165. If you filed via certain VORs or airways, you may have a legit filed and flown distance of 250 nautical miles. But when you go to the check ride, more than likely, DP will look at the names of airports where approaches have been logged, calculate the straight line distance between those airports. You departed from, say, Twin Oaks, you went to San Juan Islands, then you went to Olympia, then went to Hillsborough, and that's 1, 2, 3. So you have your 3 approaches done at maybe Friday Harbor, then Olympia, then Hillsborough. If that is a straight line distance of 250 miles, you're good. But unfortunately, they don't count all the zigzagging around Victor Airways most often. So, speaking from experience, not my mistake, but I've seen that made. Very important. And by the way, Redbird can be counted towards the simulated IMC experience, only up to 20 hours. However, it doesn't count as a flight time. So interesting catch here. You can do a legit, very high quality training in the simulator. It will count towards your instrument time, but it will not be a flight time because it's a simulated time. So it doesn't go towards your overall experience, those 1,500 hours, for example. So something to keep in mind. Okay, before I flip the slide, any questions from you guys? And if not, then let's go to something more interesting. So when instrument rating airplane is required, starting with a simpler one, carry passengers for hire when it's across country more than 50 nautical miles or at night. That's a 61-133. We clarify these nautical miles. Then next, in class Alpha, obviously, can't go above 18 out instrument rating. Special VFR at night from sunset. This got confused. So night, quote unquote, because in this case, 91-157 calls from sunset. The use case, we have a marginal day. We've flown an approach to Hillsborough. We want to get back to Twin Oaks. Visibility is low, but we may have 1 mile. We can't legally go VFR, and yet Twin Oaks has no instrument approach. Special VFR helps, but you have to be instrument ready to use that. And the next one is pretty key, and that's mostly the reason why we would be getting this instrument rating. So instrument rating is required when filing an IFR plan or flying in IMC conditions, and that's in 61.3 Echo. Note how this hints that you can actually fly IMC without filing, but there is a catch. Now in 91-173, see that's a part 91 already, not 61. That adds a requirement to file and receive clearance when you are in controlled space under instrument flight rules. So let's look at this one. What it says again, if you have filed for an instrument flight plan, it could be a clear day, no clouds, you don't have any IMC even close, but you just decided to go fly under instrument flight plan, which means you get the separation and other services. You have to have instrument rating and you have to file and you have to receive the craft clearance if you're doing that in controlled airspace. If you are filing instrument flight plan, you have to have instrument rating. If you're flying in IMC conditions, regardless if you filed or not, you also have to be instrument rated. Looking at 91-173, what I was just digesting, if you're looking at a place, something like Alaska, there really aren't that many places where you can find this. But if you are in uncontrolled airspace and you want to fly in IMC, you can fly on instrument flight rules without receiving clearance. This is an odd corner case. More than likely, none of us here in Northwest will have such opportunity, but yes, you can fly in class golf without getting clearance. Now, with all this, question comes up to you, should you, even if you can, do that IMC flying in class golf? For us, around the Portland area, class Echo begins at 700 feet, so you can't really do much of the flying anyway. Even if you find a place like this, well, without filing, you are not getting any separation services. So something to think about. But to make matters simple, you need instrument rating when you are opening a IFR flight plan, or if you're flying in IMC conditions and in controlled airspace, you have to have a clearance before you are in a controlled airspace. Now, to expand on this a little more, departing out of Twin Oaks, you actually don't have to have clearance until you enter the Echo. So staying below 700, you are legal. Again, doesn't mean it's smart. Okay, something else that I see a lot, and I hope that you guys will be keeping this clean and differentiated. Terms IFR and IMC are often used interchangeably, and they really shouldn't be. Don't be like that guy. There are examples. I think I have a screenshot on the next page. You can fly IFR instrument flight rules in any weather, IMC or not. And when your meteorological conditions are less than VFR, it becomes IMC. And unless you are in control space, you can actually not fly IFR in that case. So IMC talks about weather, what you can see. IFR talks about the rules you are flying under, and that's not always coincides with the weather. Okay, hopefully I turned that upside down and inside out by now. Okay, now let's say that, by the way, coming to a checkride, more than likely this will be another question. Hopefully this goes all quick. You show the knowledge and the DP just moves on to the next one. So what's required? The question would typically be like this. Hey, Dave, so let's say you got your temporary instrument rating right now. What do you need to have on you when you fly? And the answer should be pretty simple. You have to have a pilot's certificate. You have to have government photo ID like driving license. You have to have medical certificate. And then that gets you into the currency question. You have to be current. Obviously, you passing the checkride today, you're current, you're good to go. You have those three approaches. But going forward, you have to think of not only the instrument currency, but also the other requirements. Flight review, or how do we call it? We changed the names, the one that are required by 6156. And if you are taking passengers, then those day takeoff and landings and night takeoff and landings to the full stop, as well as the instrument currency. So you'd have to explain this. Very common to jump right to the 66 hits, the IFR currency. Do not forget to mention that to be current and legal to fly IFR, you also have to be within 2 years of your flight review, and with passengers, you have to have that passenger currency. So very important stuff. I guess I should have switched to this slide when I was talking. So flight review. Flight review consists of minimal of 1 hour flight and 1 hour ground. You can't fail that, but until a CFI says that you're good and signs you off, you're not done. Passenger, now don't forget that night currency requires landings in a period 1 hour after sunset and to full stop. So 3 touch and goes, don't cut it. And then the IFR currency. That one will definitely be something you'll have to explain. 6 hits or 66 hits is the way to remember that. Within preceding 6 months, there has to be 6 instrument approaches in your logbook. Now, going back a slide, see how the currency is required, but you don't have to have it with you. It's not required to be on the pilot, but if the question comes up, if you're legal, you may have to present the data. So 6 instrument approaches within the 6 preceding months. This is where the confusion often creeps in. Let's say today we are in November 19, which we are. Preceding 6 months would be October, then going back September, August, and other 6 months. So the example that you would be given in this case, let's say that you have had your check ride today, November 19, and then you haven't flown any other approaches for a long time. What is the last day when you're still IFR current? So in this case, November is your month when you have flown. Additional 5 months would be December, January, February, March, and April. So at the end of April, those would be the 6 preceding months, which include the 6 instrument approaches, assuming you've done the 6 today or during November. You are still legal to fly for the whole month of May, and your last day to fly legally would be the May 31st. So, I hope you're still with me. So up until the last day of the May, you will be able to show that within the preceding 6 months, counting back from May, April, March, February, January, December, and November, those 6 months will still those 6 months will still contain, am I missing an English word here? They will still have those 6 instrument approaches and hold and other tasks. So hopefully, again, inside out, the way that I make sure I have this answer correct in my at least learning period is I just draw 6 months on a piece of paper and make sure I do the counting correctly. Now, in my experience, one thing that you will very unlikely to be failed for is if you take time and think before giving answer. You can take longer, but if you got to the right question, that should be a pass. On opposite, if you rush, if you make a mistake, well, no one cares that it was quick and off memory. Okay, so 66 hits. Letter H hints at the holding procedures and tasks. I is for intercepting and tracking courses with navigation system, representative of the airplane that you are flying. And S is just because it's more than one. So hold is important, and you only need one. Intercepting and tracking courses, that comes naturally with you doing any approach. So it really comes down to 6 approaches and a hold within 6 months. Then you are IFR current. Now, the next question you're more likely to get is, well, great, you're current, you haven't flown for 6 months. We are sitting in May. You want to go to Tillamook. It's all fogged up there as usual. Would you go? And that will be a hint to talk and discuss proficiency versus currency. IFR flying can be tricky. If you haven't flown for 6 months, you're still legal, but that may not be a smart decision to go, and that's what DP will be looking to hear from you. Okay, quick pause. Any questions? And then moving on.
Is that at the end of the 6 month? You said the 31st, not to the date.
Not to the date. So if today is 19th,
it'd be to the May 31st, not May 19th.
Exactly. Let's do this. I'll open up in Excel. Coming up. And we'll do this together because this can be complicated. And it seems like a simple question, but if you screw up something like simple like this in the very beginning of an oral, it just history shows that the rest of the checkride doesn't go as smooth. You start strong, you have a much better chance of success. So let's say your 6 hits took place on January 15th, just for the fun. And then you have not flown at all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is your 6 months period that consists, why I say consist, that includes those 6 hits. And let's say that you've done all this, specifically done 6 approaches plus 1 hold on January 15. The book is looking at the month granularity. It's not going from the a day to a day. So the question will be, when is the last day that you're legal to fly? And the answer would be July 31st. So you're getting more than 6 calendar months of legality, right? Doesn't mean it's smart to fly again. Don't forget about that part. But that's the catch. So let's make this more extreme. Let's say you've flown on January 1st. So from the January 1st, so let's say you've flown your 6 approaches on January 1st, you will be IFR current, IFR legal, all the way till the last minute of July 31st, the same year, which makes it 7 months. So the nuance lies in this word that they use, preceding months. Those are the 6 preceding months before the month when you are looking to go fly instrument. Does it help, Jerry? What do you think?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Of course, you'd still have to have your 3 takeoffs and landings and to a full stop if it was nighttime to carry passengers.
You're right. Good point. Yeah. Thank you for calling out the night currency. Let's take night or day, whatever, 90 days. So in this case, if you're looking to fly on a certain day in July, and maybe let's fly July 20th, then your 3 landings have to be 90 days from that July 20th. And then what is it, 31 day in June, then 30 in May, you have to actually do the day count here. So you count the days. See that's a whole different exercise from just the 6 preceding month before the month when you fly. And then assuming you have your biannual review done.
So that's 90 days, not just exactly, it's 90 days.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what regulation says. Yeah. Yep. So if you want to fly on July 20th, then, well, roughly 20 days would be April 21st, right? Roughly. Anyway, but yes, you have to count those days. Preceding.
Depends how many days are in the month.
Yeah, exactly. Months are different. So 6 preceding months here versus 90 calendar days in the other requirements. Yep. And that's, don't get tripped on those simple things in the beginning of your checkride. This should be done and over in the first like 3-4 minutes. But if you get this wrong, then DP will be like, well, have you been studying? Okay, so back to this. But thanks for asking, Jerry. If anything like this comes up, please bring it up. A question. Okay, so hopefully we beat this one to death. Night currency, day currency, 90 days, flight review every 24 calendar month. Again, note the word preceding. And I am copying this from 6156, so please go look it up. Preceding. 6157 in the preceding again, but days. And the 6157 Charlie preceding 6 months. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Next, well, again, that should be another just couple quick minutes. What are you required to log? You fly, and let's say you're just flying for yourself. Maybe you're just like flying. What do you have to log? And turns out, if you're just flying for yourself, you don't have to log nothing except the currency. So you need to log a safety pilot assisted landing on approach and maybe landing. You have to have that record with a safety pilot, type of experience, like was it an approach, date, and place. But if you're just flying for yourself, you don't have to log that. For training, while you are flying with this CFII or CFI with authorized instructor, you also have to log his certificate number, expiration, description of what has been done, and it has to be signed by the CFI. So that's important. If your logbook has a line saying instrument training, but there is no signature, it's invalid. And you'd be surprised, but quite a lot of check rides, they're over before they even started because requirements like this aren't met. Sucks. Now, and this is what I was talking. It's only required to meet the recency of experience or when you are applying for a certificate. Remember those 50 cross country, 40 IMC hours? You have to prove you have them. Outside of that, no one cares if you log any hours. It's up to you. Also, at least in the rental world, all the logging is done with the Hobbs meter, which means the moment you start the engine, that's when you're logging that time. And I doubt anyone would ever go back and verify the rental records, but they better match. Now, depending on your future plans, some logbook like this is a pretty basic and not the best maybe example, but items like a solo flight, this specific example doesn't have it. There could be a column for simulator complex. Depends on your future plans. You may want to get a book that has all those additional details. The one that I use is that GLAIM aviation logbook. that has a lot of fields, and what I find very helpful is a pretty big area for the notes. Some logbooks have such a tiny area, you can't even fit that you did a steep turns, let alone a CFI signature. So good logbook goes a long way. But on that note, many people just use ForeFlight only. Um, I hear it's a reliable and convenient tool. I personally still do double on paper and ForeFlight. ForeFlight is definitely a super quick and easy way to see what's your currency when you building certain type of the time. It's really easy to go look up, find anything, approaches, types of airplanes. Um, but there's something in me that says, well, what if somebody presses delete button? And so I keep it. So to summarize, when you make an entry, date, flight time, to, from, type of flight, and an airplane, identifier of airplane. If you have safety pilot, then the name and what kind of experience that was and conditions. Training has to have legibly signed by authorized instructor with his certificate number, expiration, and description of what was done. That's what's required. So in the short, if you get asked, well, you are going to show me that you have those 66 hits, what is required? If you flow with safety pilot, then just you give all those requirements and show the logbook. Okay, hopefully that was easy, but let me pause if anyone has a question. Now, when can you log IMC time? The 6151 says that instrument time can be logged when flying or piloting the airplane solely by reference to instruments. Simulated means you are under the hood, actual means you are in actual IMC, and obviously simulated always requires a safety pilot. It would seems like a common sense, but I hear that sometimes a person will bring simulated time, no instrument safety. I'm sorry. There have been cases where a simulated time was logged without safety pilot, and that causes a lot of questions. You don't want to be that guy. Now, simulated time can also be logged in a Redbird. Keep in mind that is not a flight time, but if you need to stay current, great tool to log those approaches without getting airplane off the ground in bad weather. It's also a wonderful ability to hit pause and talk to a CFI on what's been done wrong, but not a flight time. Now, back to this line, flying solely by reference to instruments. Well, let's say you climb above the clouds, you don't see the ground. Part of you says, well, you're flying over the clouds. You're flying over the top. And you can do that when you're flying VFR. If you climb out of Twin Oaks and then Newburgh is all clouded up, you're flying over the top. Don't confuse with VFR on top, by the way. However, if you took off on the instrument flight plan and you went through real IMC, even if you are over the clouds, that's still a very valid reason to keep logging actual instrument time because you don't see the ground, you're still on IFR plan. There's a little bit of judgment goes into this situation, but again, going by the book, 6151. On the training, if you are flying with an authorized instructor, then you are getting the signature, and that would be a lot of the instrument time, either simulated or actual, but with a signature. Again, all this logging is required to meet that recency of experience. You need to show you are current for instrument flying, or for earning that instrument certificate, you need to bring those 40 hours. Okay, the rest already done. Okay, hopefully that's enough. couple other topics, and hopefully we are about 10 minutes away from being done. Medical certificate has to be with you, required for all the applying we do. Now, couple items that may come up is what's the SOTA? There are, even in Twinox, there are examples where a ATP pilot has certain deficiency, and the SOTA, it stands for a statement of demonstrated ability. If maybe a person is lacking a sight vision in one of the eyes, but he can demonstrate he is safe, then FISDO gives you that SOTA paper that allows you to still get the medical even if you're not fully up to the medical certificate requirements. So that's one thing. The second one is very different. That basic med is only applicable when first you had a medical certificate in the past, and second, it was not denied, revoked, or suspended. It happens normally when the person gets older, and instead of going for a medical certificate to get it denied, person just lets it expire, and then a simple physical exam with a medical provider brings the person to this basic med legal to fly situation. Now, there are some limitations, altitude and weight, but it still gives some flying ability for those who cannot get a full medical certificate anymore. I believe the new Mosaic is adding some changes to this. I don't have it in my slides yet. Still have to figure this out. If any of you have it, by the way, let me know what am I missing with this new rule. If not, a couple other things. So medical, well, I guess just quick refresher on the duration. The third class over 40 years old versus the second class required for commercial and private. Let me think. How do I explain this in a short 1 minute? Third class is enough for private recreational sport pilot. Under 40 years old, good for 60 months. Over 40 years, good for 24 months. If you are going for a airline job, you need a first class medical. Now, I'll just pick a over 40 years old first class medical example. The one common question that may come up is what happens with a first class medical after 6 months have passed? And try to be correct, do not say that a first class medical turns into a second class medical. It still is a first class medical, but when you are in your months 7 through 12, you can only exercise a second class privileges of your first class medical certificate. And likewise, in the second year, that same first class medical only gives you the privileges of the third class. So it at first seems like a minor word difference, but I know DPs really have issue with if you say, well, it just turns into a third class medical in after 12 months. It doesn't. It's still, the paper still says medical certificate first class. So there is something that I wanted to share. And a couple more slides. Definitely will come up in a scenario given. And by the way, ACS are all now about scenario-based evaluation. You'll be given a task like next week, you have a customer who will be paying you maybe, or maybe has an airplane and wants you to fly him in his airplane, still paying you. You'll fly IFR, he'll have a couple of beers with friends, he'll fly back. And what do you need to prepare, plan, assess? And one of the definite must-be-used checklist will be the PA. If you look at pilot risk factors, you go through I'm safe checklist, go through the aircraft inspections, any risk factors, whatever else you can come up with. Environment, what's going on with the weather. You are flying into unfamiliar airport. Is it too short, slippery, grassy, dark at night? Tall trees on that approach in a airport at night without lights. So could be a lot of environment factors and external pressures, because the guy is definitely saying like, oh, we really need to get there by 6, otherwise I'm late. Can you do it? Like, what if I pay you extra? Can we be there by 6? A lot of pilots get killed because they have this get there-itis. So that's a good discussion. Part of instrument flying is this measured, safe, risk-averse approach to the flying, and use this checklist to show how you approach this. I'm safe checklist. Hopefully you all remember this by now, but illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigue, emotion. In Sailor Patrol, they're starting to take this ever more seriously to go through all those questions. And of course, we use it before every flight we do, especially in instrument. Going into actual IMC conditions, you probably want to be on a much better side of your acceptable range for all 5 of them. Going IMC after stress, not a good idea. On emotions, you had a fight with your significant other, maybe don't go IMC on that day. Okay, that's it. Wrap up. Hopefully that was useful. I will definitely post the slides, and you're welcome to get back to this and review. Now, let's just open it up for questions, and ready to crack a beer.
I do have one.
Yes.
For the check ride, you were talking about all the currency and requirements and stuff. Do you have to be current, for instance, on your night landings and whatnot when you do your check ride?
Great question. I don't believe you can. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't believe you have to be night current if you do it during the day, but your DP acts as a passenger. You're not receiving flight instruction.
Oh, right.
So, like, you don't have to be night current if it's during the day, but you have to be day current with a passenger.
But what if you're doing your check ride and it ends up going into after dark? Then you would have to be night current in order to complete your check ride, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if somehow you are flying 1 hour after sunset with a passenger and you're not current, that's a problem. You'll probably that will not go well. Okay.
Yeah.
If anyone thinks differently, by the way, let me know. But that's a great catch. For check ride. I will take this up and dig into this just to confirm, but I believe for the check ride, you have to be passenger current. For your training with the CFI, you don't, because you are with the CFI, right? Yeah, but for the check ride, I spoke to my DPE, and he's not even logging that as a training given, or because he's there to observe as a passenger, right? Which means you are carrying a passenger, which also means you have to be passenger current.
Makes sense.
Yeah. That's something for me as a CFII to check before sending student out. If somehow student has not, well, I guess let's think through this. Is it possible that student has the 3 hours of training within 2 months and have not logged 3 landings? Unlikely. So I guess in really,
Yeah,
But the night currency, they probably wouldn't have, or they might not
night
have.
currency could get you.
right.
Yeah.
Anybody going for their check ride, they're going to be cramming, making sure they're going to be in that airplane and practicing, with hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess you can come up with a corner case where you only did one landing and everything else was touch and go or missed approach during the day. But it's real easy to be not night current by the check ride. If it goes into the dark, you may have to discontinue because you are 5 minutes away from the time. Yeah, great one. Love it. I'll make a highlight out of this for next one.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Dimitri.
Well, thanks. Thanks all for coming in. I'll turn this into a lesson posted on the YouTube. Hopefully it helps. I'll cut out those couple items that we found and make it cleaner.
I like
Thanks
Hey
all.
Dimitri, sorry, just a question on that IMC, logging IMC above the clouds. So you're saying when we break through the clouds and we're flying maybe certain clearances away from the clouds, we're still logging IMC because we don't maintain visual reference?
Yeah, okay. So let's say we filed for 4,000, we went into the clouds, we broke above, and we are flying above the clouds. And is that what you're asking?
Yes,
Okay,
because
right.
as a VFR pilot, we can fly above the clouds too,
Exactly. And
without visual reference for like, I don't know, until you find a hole or something, right?
Exactly. And if you are flying on instrument flight plan, this situation will be very legit to keep logging the IMC time because you don't see the ground, you have some clouds below you. You think you're safe, but do you have actual references to know exactly where you are? You're flying on instruments. Even when you are flying VFR above the clouds, you're probably looking at your GPS to tell where exactly you're flying, right? It's, yeah.
I got called on making an error when I said I was VFR on top, when I was in the Cub over the clouds, and it was VFR over the top, which is the VFR terminology. But you can be in a situation where you're above the clouds, like you're describing, but you kind of have the option, don't you, Dimitri, to cancel your IFR clearance if you're confident and maybe presume there's a hole ahead that you can put down, and you could cancel the IFR clearance, but it's not necessarily a wise thing to do.
Exactly.
But if you're flying VFR on top is an IFR term legally, that you're still in, as you said, on an instrument flight plan and instrument conditions, navigating by instruments. But there's something, what's the nuance there, Dimitri, about your altitudes? You get some leeway when you tell the ATC that you're VFR on top and you have clear sky above you or something. Don't you get like a cruise altitude or something to that effect?
Well, it depends. So if you have requested VFR on top, you are still on IFR flight plan. You still fly by IFR clearance and rules, but you will be flying at VFR altitudes. So those odds evens plus 500. So you're kind of both of those two worlds. You're still on IFR plan. Now, can you cancel that saying you are VFR? I guess because you probably see that 50 miles ahead of you, you see the ground, maybe. It becomes a little gray area, right? So being VFR on top, if you cancel, then you become VFR over the top. And then there's no IFR in the picture. You should be flying VFR altitudes, but you kind of do whatever you want. But those, you're right, those are completely different terms. Don't confuse them. VFR on top is a part of IFR clearance that you have to receive. VFR over the top is just what people do because they fly over the clouds.
Oh, if you cancel, it's really hard to get it back, isn't it? to ask for, you're like asking for a fresh pop-up if you do that.
Exactly, yes. So yeah, if you cancel, in this case, if cancel, and no VFR landing possible, what you do is you ask for a pop-up VFR. I'm sorry, pop-up IFR. Now, what's the risk on this one?
You don't get it?
They're too busy.
Exactly. They just say, sorry, unable, we're busy. Say intentions. That's their way of saying you screwed, right? Yeah, so if they say, yeah, enable say intentions, you're like, and at that moment, you can't say, oh, I'll just dive through the clouds because I think I know where I'm going, right? Well, I guess they're prompting you in this case. They trust me, if you get in the situation, they will say intentions. And the way out of this would be, I'm declaring emergency. I was not expecting to be here. I don't have visibility. And then they'll have to help you out. Yeah, so don't forget about that emergency situation. And 93.3, I'm sorry, 91.3 regulation. That is, your PAC has authority to deviate from whatever's needed in the case of emergency. But that would also be what will also be declaring emergency could be a way of just getting more attention if you're really stuck. You may have to explain yourself when you do that, you know?
And
I
a
mean, there
lot
might
more
be
paperwork.
paperwork involved.
Sorry, Jerry?
That's a way to get a lot more paperwork.
Yes, more than likely. I think what it says, if like if you were granted priority, then you have to do the paperwork, or if they request, but I didn't get there yet. Hopefully we'll never have to. Yeah. Shazad, did I answer your question? Just getting back to the slides.
Yes. Yeah, I guess we continue to log actual in that case.
Yes, and I actually, it's a great question you ask. Thanks. I want to drill into this just a little more. So you're flying solely by reference to instruments. Let's say we're flying at night. We were on instrument flight plan, and clouds are kind of disappeared, but there is still no civilization below us. It's all dark, like flying east of the valley, maybe. You're maybe at night without visual references, you may be still flying on instruments. By the book, by the spirit of the book, in this case, you would be still flying solely by reference to instruments. So when you talk through this, you realize it's not exactly black and white. I mean, if you are in the clouds, that's white, right? But if you are emerging of the clouds and you may be going for some Yakima airport for night landing, and you're honestly flying by reference to instruments, even if somebody asks you later, why did you log IMC? The meter was showing sky clear. And the answer will be, it was middle of the night. There was no moon. I was flying by reference to the instruments only. So a bit of a gray area, but something to think about. They didn't say when meter shows sky clear. They said when flying solely by reference to instruments. 6151.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Again, I'm not saying bend the rules and log more time, but when it's real like this, it's okay to log instrument time, even if it's not in the clouds. I'll have to consult with my CFI, see if he approves this statement. Well, and this is where I had to add a few words. After the discussion, thanks my audience for the question. I had to dig into this and do some thinking, also look at sources of data, and I'm going to bring you a couple of them. But first of all, let me apologize for missing this important piece. 6151G says you can log actual time when operating solely by reference to instruments under actual instrument flight conditions. That may be important. So let's think into this a little bit and then see how this can be backed up with legal interpretations on hand. So let's double confirm again, going back to the source, ecfr.gov, 6151G, golf person may log instrument time, simulated or actual instrument flight conditions. Notice how they aren't saying instrument meteorological conditions, or they're not saying instrument flight rules. Instead, they choose to use instrument flight conditions. Well, why would that be the case? So I was describing situation just a few minutes ago in a video about flying from Seattle area to, for example, Yakima. You'd be crossing over the lot of mountains. Seattle area is normally at this time of year all IMC. You'd definitely be flying into the clouds. If you're flying at night, you may not have horizon for a while, even if you are out from the clouds, which you can tell by reflection of your lights or strobes. But if you have no outside visual references, that may not be a good enough reason to stop flying solely by reference to instruments. Now, let's look at this. This is a legal interpretation, somewhat dated, but if you find anything that's contradicting this, please let me know. And the question that Mr. Carr asked to get interpreted is exactly the what if, for instance, a flight is over the ocean on a moonless night without a horizon that can be used. Could this be logged as an instrument flight time? And the answer to that question was yes. So they explained that actual instrument conditions occur when some outside conditions make it necessary for the pilot to use actual instruments. So instrument flight conditions. Typically, those would involve adverse weather conditions, typically, but it doesn't say only. So there is your very similar example of flying to Yakima, Washington State. And here on a moonless night over the ocean, it feels about the same. And then they go on to say almost exactly what I felt. Determination is somewhat subjective. So yes, there could be cases, like I said, not all black and white, where you as a pilot have to decide, are you required, you have to fly by reference to instruments solely or not. And they even go as far as to suggest that pilot must log conditions of the flight and even include the reasons. So if you log a whole lot of instrument time flying on a clear moonless night, your log should say no usable horizon, moonless night, flown by reference to instruments. So with that said, while a lot is left for the pilot to decide how he logged this and what kind of time pilot logged, be honest with yourself, with the system. If you are honestly flying by reference to instruments, even if you're somewhat out from the cloud area, but you have enough clouds, enough scattered clouds maybe to continue flying instruments, you may have enough good reasons to log that as an instrument flight time. So we discussed how the IMC is different from IFR, and now we are looking at yet another one, the instrument flight conditions. I'll be looking to see if that kind of three-word combination is used anywhere else. Until then, hopefully this clarification helped. Let's get back to the wrap-up. Okay, well, that's all I had.
Awesome.
Had a
Thank you.
great hour. Thanks all for joining. Vanessa, thank you for bringing that basic map and the night currency for checkride. I love that one.
You're welcome. Thank you. This is a good class.
We'll keep doing them. I love how it's going, and like I said, as long as I have at least a couple people join, we'll carry on.
Okay. Have a
Cool.
good night, everybody.
Thanks,
Okay.
all. Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
good night. Thanks again, Dimitri.
You're very welcome. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.